Okay, so we're missing five. We're missing five, so we'll give them about a minute to come in and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's make sure that I didn't miss you when you were coming in. Benny's not here yet, right? No Benny? What about Sylvia?
No.
I didn't miss Sylvia coming in, did I? And then Jesus? Perfect. Okay. So happy Tuesday. Good to see you. Hope you had a good weekend. Couple of things. We're to week 10 already, so we're well past the halfway point of the semester. Last week, we looked at Napoleon. There were 2 maps. Those grades were updated again this morning, so if you did it late last night, those were updated. The test will be updated this afternoon. I can only do that in the afternoon after 3. So if you've taken the test between yesterday afternoon and now, it'll update, should show up in your areas about 3:30. We'll start the Industrial Revolution. Pretty short amount of time today, as well as a small amount of material. Want to give you, we're 10 days away from the end of the second quarter, so we want to give you enough time to turn in and everything. Remember that anything from this quarter can still be turned in for full credit. So even though it might say closed on Canvas, if you go directly into Go Formative, if you go directly into TCI, those things are still open. All you have to do is submit them. Same thing with your tests. Even back to, I think, the second unit test, which is, I don't know how many weeks ago. Week 7, yeah, see, that's October 5th. So even if you go into School City, you can still take test 2 if you haven't. So all of those things are still open, so you can get full credit for any of those items. Go ahead and log into Module 10, and we will talk about what we are going to look at this unit. Okay, so one last time before I submit the roll. So no Benny yet, no Sylvia, no Jesus, right? If any of you are here, say something now. So no Benny, Sylvia, no Jesus. Okay, perfect. All right, so this next unit is going to be more than 1 week. It's one of our bigger units. But basically what we're going to look at is what happens after Napoleon in Europe. As you saw from the maps that we had you do, when Napoleon is defeated and actually exiled for a second time, Europe breaks back up into 19 different countries again, and 19 different ways that they rule themselves. And so we're going to see a big change in Europe in the 1800s, the biggest of which is population is now going to start focusing and centering on cities instead of rural areas. And so first we have, before the Industrial Revolution, is the Agricultural Revolution. And if you remember from your junior high days, right, the Agricultural Revolution happens because basically farmers figure out one thing, and they figure out that if they rotate crops, right, it replenishes the nutrients, right? If you grow the same thing on the soil every growing season, eventually your soil is going to go bad, and it's going to become essentially toxic, and you're not going to be able to grow anything. And so if you take fields, I'm going to draw some examples here, and you grow a different type of crop on that field every season and then rotate that, basically those different plants will replenish the nutrients in that soil. And what that does, let's say that field one year you're going to grow corn, And it could be really anything that you want, but let's just go through there. Field 2, 1 year, is going to be lettuce. All right, and then field 3, let's say, is going to be oranges, right? And probably all of those don't grow in the same spot, right? But you get the idea. And so what happens is in the 1800s, people figure out that if we rotate these different crops to different fields every growing season, our soil will be better, we'll produce more food. Now, with more food production, just like during the video clip that I showed you about the wells underneath Florence and in Italy, right? When you have enough food and you have enough water, population is going to grow. And so in this example, right, if corn is grown on field 1, 1 year, lettuce in field 2, oranges in field 3, the next year, oranges will be grown in 1, corn will be grown in 2, lettuce will be grown in 3, and then they'll rotate again. And so when all of this happens, what you have is basically an abundance of food. And when you have an abundance of food, just like we have today, you can start to create what is known as urban areas. And urban areas are really the creation of cities. And once you have cities, then you have the creation of social classes, and then you need people to have jobs, right? And that's where the Industrial Revolution comes in. So by the early 1800s, all right, people could make more in the city than they could on a farm. It was more profitable to be in a city working at a factory than it was on a farm. And that was really for the first time for most people in history. You'll see the population in cities rise during this time period. So from 1800, and remember, Napoleon's reign ends about 1812. Europe is back to normal about 1815. From 1800 to 1850, cities in Europe with 100,000 people went from 22 to 47. So the population essentially in Europe has doubled in half a century. And that's because of this abundance of food, the availability of water, and, right, stability, right? There is no more wars really going on between. Now, the living conditions, obviously in the city, were crowded. There was no such thing as city planning back then. There is no sanitation. It's not like they have a sewer system like we do, and there were no building codes. So that's why even in the early 1900s, right, you'd have a fire start in San Francisco or a fire start in Chicago and basically burn the entire city down, right? Where we have fire codes now. Even if a fire starts in this classroom or another classroom, there's going to be sprinklers that automatically kick on and basically stop the fire threat. Your life expectancy is 20 years worse in the city than the farms, just because of all of the things that are going on and because of how basically dirty the air comes from in the factories. There's no regulations back then. You generally have families that are in a one-room structure. So there would be a one-room structure that would be your living room, your family room, your dining room, and then you would have separate facilities if you were lucky enough to have a bathroom. Most people worked 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, right? Was not affected by the seasons, right? In the countryside, when you worked a farm, generally people didn't work in the winter, right? There's nothing to plant, there's nothing to grow. The creation of social classes comes about with this growth in society. So you have basically before, right, when we looked at France, even before the time of Napoleon, we had 3 social classes. We had the first estate, second estate, third estate. First estate were the Catholic priests and the aristocrats. The second estate were basically your feudal lords, right, who were in charge of the farms. The third estate was the peasants that worked the farms. Well, when you have this population movement into the cities in Europe, you have a new class. You have a working class. You have a social class. It's what we would in the United States used to call the middle class. So this working class ends up being the lowest class in society now, right? The middle class that is created divides into 2 groups as industrialization starts to grow. You have an upper middle class, which would be government employees, doctors, lawyers, managers of factories. The lower middle class is going to be your tool makers, your mechanical drafters, your printers, basically the people that work in and out of society, right? In and out of society. Any questions on that portion so far? Okay, so when we talk about Industrial Revolution, this will be, you'll find this part fun here. We're gonna have a little guessing game here. Let me bring it up. Just a second, I'm having a hard time making it show. Okay, here we go. You ready? Now, just guess on these, right? It does not matter if you get them right or wrong, but I want you to guess on whether these things came from the Industrial Revolution or did not. All right? So, on question one, I'm going to put this in a poll for you, and you can guess. So let me edit that and get it right. Okay. So let me put that up. All right, so let's do number one first. And this is just guess. So just guess on whether you think it is or not. So, oh man, why does it not show? I just edited it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So first one, making of clothes. All right, making of clothes in the Industrial Revolution. Is that an invention, all right, that comes during that time period? All right, so on one, yes, the flying shuttle comes from the Industrial Revolution. All right. 2, the spinning jenny that basically turns wool from lambs into thread. Was that invented during this Industrial Revolution, say 1850 and later? All right, so 69% of you say yes, 64%. It's down to 64%, down to 60%. Uh-oh. Okay. Taking wool into thread using spinning basically was invented during this time period. All right, during the Industrial Revolution, did the steam engine, meaning an engine that is run by steam from water, was that invented in this time period, 1850s or later? All right, 64% say yes, 64% of you would be right. All right, the cotton gin. Eli Whitney's cotton gin. The cotton gin separates the cotton seeds from the fibers and allow you to create clothes. Is that invented during this time period? %79 say yes, 79% would be right. All right. So let's move down here. All right, what about the telegraph? Is the telegraph invented during the Industrial Revolution? Ooh, this one's pretty close. 53% say yes, 47 say no. Okay. On this, the telegraph was invented during the Industrial Revolution. What about concrete? Concrete that was made with a mixture of sand, gravel, and water. Is that invented now, earlier, or later? So yes, during the Industrial Revolution, or no? Yes. Concrete is developed this time period. And then let's go with steel next. Steel, remember, is a combination of three metals to make something that is stronger than it would be if it were just one metal. During the Industrial Revolution, yes or no? %79 say yes, 79% would be right. What about a battery? A battery, a primitive type battery in which it would act as a charging device. That is correct. And then lastly, trains. Are trains developed during the Industrial Revolution? Trains are. All right. So a couple of things I want you to ponder. We won't go through the second one, but basically this is a list of everything that I could find that was developed during the Industrial Revolution. So not only the list that we went over, but also the power loom, which was basically an automated way of creating clothes. The water frame, which helped to make threads. And basically it put threads onto a spindle automatically. The spinning mule was an automatic thread maker. Wrought iron that used bolts and rods is created during this time. You have gas-powered street lights during the Industrial Revolution. They figured out how to preserve food in tin cans and seal that. The first photograph is taken from a camera during the Industrial Revolution. It's a chemical reaction. The raincoats that we wear today that repel water, that material is invented during the Industrial Revolution. Those wooden matches that you get in a matchbox were invented during the Industrial Revolution, and also the typewriter. So the next advancement in Gutenberg's basically movable type printing press is invented. So you can see the things that happen during the Industrial Revolution. Those are all things that happen in less than a 50-year time period, which is pretty amazing. Okay. So what I want to show you next is just a simple screen show of the Industrial Revolution with some points to emphasize. So as I said at the beginning of class, it is not until people figure out that they are able to rotate crops and create a surplus of food that you're going to see growth in cities. So the Industrial Revolution is caused by the advancements in agriculture. A couple of things that you'll see leading up to the 1850s. There's a consolidation of land. Wealthy landowners bought up small farms to make large estates, combine all of their resources together, have people work together to produce more. And then what they did was create enclosures. They made small sections of larger fields to develop and experiment new techniques, and also to rotate the crops. So like this picture here, you would rotate crops so that it would help you. One of the things that helped to speed up the development in agriculture is this seed drill developed by Jethro Tull. And basically what it did was, instead of putting seeds in one at a time in the ground, he developed a machine that basically went up and down, up and down, up and down, and plunged the seeds into their ground. And you were able to plant a field much faster, probably about 10 times as fast as you could by hand. And then also people figured out about breeding. You could selectively breed different types of cattle. So with the agricultural output, and it skyrockets, as I talked about, you'll see the increase in population, right? So here, right, England's population in 1750, before Napoleon, before the Industrial Revolution, before the American Revolution even, was only 5.7 million people. By 1850, right, it had more than tripled. 16.6 million people, all right? As farms become more efficient, more food is made, more food allows for more people to move to the cities and basically to create a different life for them. And when they move to the city, they need jobs, and that's where the factories are going to come in. So because of these increases in agricultural production, you're going to have industrialization. Industrialization is simply the process of developing machine production of goods. So instead of things being created by hand, we're going to create machines to make those things for us. Industrialization starts in England, and England has a number of factors that allow for that, but basically they have the land, they have the labor, and they have the people that have the money to provide the capital to make all of these things happen. And so England is going to be the first place to industrialize. That's why it's going to be a world power, especially in colonialization as we move on the next 100 years. Because basically 1850 through 1944, right? England is the most powerful country in the world. So here you can see the migration, the population of London, 1700, it's only 600,000 people. In 1851, it is 2.3 million people. Went to London in April of 2018, it was over 11 million people in London, right? It is the center of the country. Why England? They're the ones that had an expanding economy. They had more banks than anybody else. They had sophisticated lending practices already set. And they didn't go through a French Revolution like France did. They've had a stable government for over 100 years. There's a constitutional monarchy with the parliament basically choosing and checking that monarch. So since the Glorious Revolution, they haven't had the fighting back and forth. And then in England, England has a pretty open society with a lot of freedoms, very similar to what the United States is now. The rest of Europe and Russia didn't have that. And so all of these things, as I have said, combined into making machines that made things faster. You need people to run those machines, and that's where your factories come in. So basically, these factories are where all of these items are going to be placed at. All right. Now, the biggest advancement, the first type of engine is going to be run on steam. Steam engine is going to be used to propel boats. And they're going to be basically, and that's why another reason that England is so well is that they have a series of rivers that allow for steam engines to move goods and services back. After the steam engines developed, you're going to have people start to make man-made canals to connect regions to these centers to move goods and services back and forth. River and canal trade is better than overland trade because they don't have trains yet. They have steam engines that they put on boats, but they didn't come up with the train until later. All right. On land, eventually what you're going to have is the creation of roads. So they're going to figure out large rocks on top of smooth gravel is going to create drainage and allow for travel even during the winter and the fall. Steam engines are going to lead to railroads. You have your first railroad engine in 1804, your first railroad line in 1821, and it basically transports coal back to the city. Once they figure out that they could use coal and that it burns more efficiently than steam from water, it's going to increase the availability and use of the train. Now, Liverpool to Manchester in 1830 is going to have a train that goes up to 24 miles an hour. All right, which is extremely fast for that time period. Because if you think about it, in the 1500s, the 1400s, people wouldn't travel 20 miles in their lifetime. They were pretty sedentary. 24 miles an hour on a train is going to change the world completely. And if you take Amtrak now, if you get in an Amtrak train now, you can do 80 plus miles an hour on an Amtrak train. All right. Railroads affect virtually every other industry. Economic growth, it's going to get cheaper to transport goods. It's going to create jobs in mines, in iron smelting, in shipping. It's going to boost agriculture because you're going to get crops to the market faster. People are going to grow more crops so that they can get more profits. More people are going to come to the cities. And basically, once that happens, the change from a steam engine to a coal engine on a train, you're going to see the canal industry disappear. So it's going to last 10, 15 years, but it's going to be very short-lived. Any questions on that? Okay. So as I said, there won't be a lot because I want you to be able to finish the things that you are missing. All you need to do between now and the time we meet next week, there's another map of Europe, and I want you to see how it changes after Napoleon, because a number of countries are going to pull land away from the French Empire and create them for themselves. So let me get you your student view so you can see what I'm talking about here. Did I not put the, oh, I didn't put the link in. I'll fix that. I'll fix that and put the link in. But it's going to be the map of 1815. I bet I didn't even open it up yet. It's a good thing we checked on that. You guys have been screwed. Well, let me get the right one up. So it's not there. Hold on just a second. Sorry. I put it in a folder, but I didn't put it any other place. Okay. So basically what happens after Napoleon is they're going to take that portion of Italy that he had allowed to his son, Prussia. You can see there's a bunch of new places here. So you're going to do that map post-Napoleon, all right, post-Napoleon. And then there are three questions in section 1 of lesson 16, unit 4, and 1 question in the introduction. So just a map exercise and 4 questions in TCI. On the TCI, remember, only do what is listed there. So a number of you always try to do more than you're supposed to or the wrong section. You're going to unit 4, lesson 16. In the introduction, you're only doing question 1. And then in section 1, you're only going to do questions 1 through 3. So if you look in the text, right? Unit 4, Industrial Revolution, which is section 16. And you're doing the introduction, okay? Question 1, all right? Just this one question here. And then in section 1, you're only doing questions 1, 2, and 3. You're only doing questions 1, 2, and 3. That's all you have to do. So I will fix that formative and get that right map up for you. And then the questions in TCI are available. So all you have to do is submit that. The video link, let me show you that, because a number of times a lot of people ask, where's the video I'm supposed to watch? The video link for that is right here. So I put the video link in there. And when you go here, that video is in that slide. So it's available for you so you don't have to go looking for it. All right. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns. There's 10 days between now and the grading period. Every assignment from this quarter can be turned in for full credit. So make sure that you get everything turned in you're missing. Make sure that your tests, because those have the greatest amount of points, are finished as well. All right. Have a good week. We will see you next Tuesday.
Hey, Mr. Grock, I had a question.
Perfect. Let's hear it.
Okay, so when I was turning my test today,
Yes.
the submit button was missing.
The submit button was missing on Canvas.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't worry. Let me write that down and I'll just go in and check it manually.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why it wasn't available, but I'll pull up your test score and add it. Was it test 3 or test 4?
4.
4. Okay, perfect.
Thanks so much. Have a great
Okay,
day.
take care, Lily. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Mm-hmm.